Well, welcome back once again to a new video on the Triumph Roadster restoration. I've actually been quite busy since the last episode. I've been doing a few little things off camera just to try and keep the project moving. I've been attacking the dent again, this time with a bit more banging and some filler. I've been fitting electronic ignition because for some reason I couldn't get the car to start because the condenser suddenly died. And I've fitted a new rear view mirror which replaced the old one which had lost all of its silver. The most important thing, however, is the fact that I now have a load of new tyres, or semi-new tyres, which I'll explain in a minute, fitted to the wheels. So we'll have a look at those first, and then I will explain what I've done and what I'm going to do in this episode. Let's get going. So I'll show you what we've done with the dent first. There was actually another dent here, I noticed. After we'd banged out the first one and put filler on, I then spotted this one, but this one has now been smoothed off as well. We had a little tap at that, and that's now pretty much gone. This one we tapped out last time. The steel is actually much softer than we were expecting, so that wasn't very difficult. I bogged that up and then we sanded it down, so that was fine. And then moving on, one of the more technical things I have been up to, we came down and I realised that the car wouldn't start, but I realised that it was the condenser. We tested it and there was nothing in it, and I tried wiring on the external condenser and that worked perfectly. So that was obviously the source of the problem, and to overcome that, rather than soldering in a beastly condenser to the DKY H4A, I bought an electronic ignition kit for the right distributor, and I fitted it with a new rotor arm at the same time because the old one seemed to be rather worn along the outer edge. I don't know if people had been continuously filing at it over many years, but this one does seem to be better. The car is in a running state, but I haven't yet adjusted the timing to compensate for the electronic ignition. I think you need to advance it about 10 degrees just from where the magnets in the trigger ring sit. So when you have electronic ignition, you put this trigger ring on. I had to actually scrape a bit out of the inside of this trigger ring to make it fit. It was actually the largest supplied, so it was a good job I was able to get it to fit because none of the others would. But it is working now, and the new base plate sits in perfectly because of course you'd have had the long tubular condenser in here before. So that's that done. The wiring is slightly different. It's a lot easier on a negative earth car, but I didn't want to change this one because I haven't done much to it yet. It doesn't seem necessary. So I bought the positive earth version. If I can get that to sit back down properly. Yes, there we go. So I bought the positive earth version, which just required some slight adjustments to the coil wiring. So you see, rather than having the coil wired directly to the ignition switch and the distributor, or with the contact breaker point, you then wire the contact breaker side to the ground, which I've got on this little jumper lead here, which runs to the little bolts which hold in the jack clip unusually, so I don't know why that is, but it doesn't matter. That was suitably simple. The more complicated bit was working out where the white one goes. The white one actually goes to the negative feed, which is the ignition switch. So that was slightly confusing, but I just they both had ring terminals, so I fitted a tiny nut and bolt through them and then covered them in heat shrink. That seems to work. I should tidy that up though. I'm sure it'll all tell me in the comments. So that's that. The car is running. I need to adjust that but I am currently charging the battery, and we will start it up later because, in fact, when we have the wheels back on, I want to start trying to unstick the clutch, because that's the major impediment to actually driving the car now. Because once we get the clutch going, we can actually, you know, drive it round and test the running gear a bit more. Inside the car, if we hop in, I have fitted the new rearview mirror. Apologies, it's already filthy, but it clipped in fine. Although it was slightly thicker, you can't actually buy the thinness of the glass that was used originally. I just had to bend one of those tabs down slightly just to get it in, but that was fine. It looks so much better than the old one. The old one was absolutely covered in pitting and holes, and you could see straight through. There was no mirror function left, which is good. I just had that cut at the local glass cutters. They do mirrors and things, and I asked the chap, and he very kindly cut it for me to match the original, and then filed down the edges so they weren't sharp. So that was a very good solution. I was pleased with that. So as you can see, these are my newly re-shod wheels with the same slightly grotty, rusty bits that were present before. I was going to have them painted, but I thought we might be better off having the entire car painted with the wheels at the same time, otherwise the colour match or the finish might not be the same. So I didn't bother painting them this time. The tyres are somewhat new, but not brand new. They are cross plies, and I think they're about 4 or 5 years old, but I'm not going to be driving the car on the road, so that doesn't particularly worry me, or I'm not going to be driving it just yet. They are off the Jowett Jupiter, which has the same size of wheel, so I just swapped them over when I put the Jupiter onto radials. And finally, I wanted to keep this lovely bald one as a memento, and you can actually see it's a proper old made in Australia one, so it could be, I think some of them were original to the car from 1947, which, looking at the tread, you can probably see. Imagine driving around on that. You would have no grip whatsoever, but I'm going to keep that one. I'll think of something to do with it. Otherwise it'll just hang around in the garage and can be something I can lean an engine on if I need to have some cushioning. So I'm going to take these into the garage and finally put them back on the car. So after a lot more effort than I'd like to admit, the wheels are now back on, but there was, of course, a problem. I put the wheels on and they ran smoothly, and then I thought, oh, well, I'll just test the brakes, and I pressed on the brakes and they all locked. Couldn't move them at all. So now, as you can see, yeah, there's a bit of binding in there from a warped drum, but that one's not bad. And that's now because what I realised was happening was the springs weren't retracting the shoes back into the piston and squeezing the pistons enough. So I thought this is very odd. So I looked at the original shoes, which I took off the car. Here's one. And I looked at the place where the hole was for the spring. And I realised that on the Land Rover shoes, the spring wasn't being stretched as much as on the originals. So the springs weren't under the same amount of tension that they were before. So all I did was I took all of them off all over again, and I drilled holes in them, fitted the springs into the new holes, which were slightly further apart, and popped them back on, and now they do work. Phew. Alright, so now I can get on with the next job, which is I'm going to try and run the car and see if I can adjust the timing. I'm going to first loosen up the bolt down here, which allows you to turn the distributor, and then I will use that to adjust the timing. Unfortunately, I don't know where the timing marks are, if it's even got any, because you can't actually see the crank from the top of the engine. So we might have to just work out what's best for the time being by going off the best idle. Alright, I'm now going to start the car up once again. I've taken the bonnet off to ease adjusting the timing. It probably wasn't necessary, but I might have to change the carburettor as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start it up, warm it up, and then when the idle has settled down and I can take the choke off, I can then turn the distributor so that the idle speed is at its highest, and then I'll adjust the mixture screw and the idle screw on the carburettor to make it smoothest. Having done that, I'll then switch it off and we'll try and unstick the clutch by pressing the clutch pedal in, putting it into third, starting it, and then we'll, with the clutch still depressed, we'll slam on the brakes, and hopefully that'll be enough to free the clutch from the flywheel. So let's give it a go. Alright, ignition on, clutch depressed, not that it's necessary this time, it's still in neutral first time. Choke out. Lift the clutch. And press it in again. Well, that was amazing. Now the fumes are receding, I can explain what was going on in that probably deafening clip. We started it up in third and then revved it like crazy, and the clutch suddenly went, it didn't make a popping noise, but it made a sort of the noise of something very rusty separating from something else down presumably in the bell housing, and it was then working and we were able to use the clutch and have the wheels move. So we can now presumably change gear. I haven't tried it yet, might try that next. That's probably something I'll do now. I was just going to tighten up the exhaust manifold because there was a lot of leaking and it was disgusting. But that's amazing. I thought it would be incredibly difficult. I was prepared with trolley jacks and things to drop the car on the ground and slam it into action, but we didn't need to. I'm amazed because the car was sitting for around 50 years, so it was going to be a very small chance that the clutch would unstick easily, but unstick it seems to have done, so I'm not going to complain at all. I'm very pleased with that, and now we can do a bit more testing, and then eventually, probably next episode, we can maybe take it out of the garage and around the field. So that's about it for this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. We had a few unplanned problems trying to get the wheels back on, but we seem to have overcome them, at least for the time being, until they find some new irritation to get in my way. But the main thing of this episode was that we did manage to get the clutch going, and that is a major step forward in the progress of the restoration. So hopefully, even next time, we might be able to take it off the stands for the first time in more years than I'd care to admit, and we'll be able to put it back on the ground and potentially take it for a drive if we can get the engine to idle enough and the brakes to stay off for long enough. So we'll see what happens, but I think it'll be a very exciting one. As always, thank you very much for watching, and ta-ta for now.